Good day, everyone. We are here to tackle about the documentary of an eyewitness episode entitled Kapalit ng Katahimikan. To start off, we have Clark for our introduction.
Kapalit ng Katahimikan is an eyewitness documentary by Cara David that tackles the heartbreaking stories of women who were repeatedly abused in their tribe. Within their community to settle the issue between two parties, victims are often silenced with money or marriage, all in the name of preserving peace. The documentary video exposes how deep-rooted traditions and systems fail to protect the most vulnerable, putting communities' reputation above justice. To end the cycle, communities must be educated about the realities of abuse. Victims must be empowered to speak out through access to safe space and support systems. And abusers must be held accountable regardless of their relation to the victim. Forced settlement and silence should never replace justice. This documentary is a call to action for families, institutions, and government to step up, protect the vulnerable, and ensure that healing can begin where silence ends.
The goal is to understand the real life ethical challenges within social and political contexts using various ethical consideration and to understand how applied ethics can guide responsible decision making and promote awareness of human rights, freedom of speech, and moral accountability. So for the objective is to assess an ethical consideration upheld and violated in documentary, which is to explore how staying silent or being involved affects moral responsibility in confronting abuse and injustice today. And also is to analyze the journalist delivery or real life stories, the ethical dilemmas faced, and determine whether ethical considerations were observed or violated, which is to relate the video's themes and also the cultural norms to relevant ethical concerns like fundamental human rights and freedom of speech.
As we observe the documentary, we witness three difficulties that the journalist Cara David confronted. The first challenge is balancing cultural sensitivity with the pursuit of justice for victims of abuse. Second, Cara David struggles to accurately portray the victims' experiences while maintaining their safety and dignity throughout the documentary. Lastly, she chooses not from using the victim's trauma for public gain. Despite these challenges, the journalist embraces responsibility for upholding ethical standards by not completely condemning the culture but rather presenting facts and allowing viewers to reflect on the consequences of such practices, telling their stories with ethical responsibility to protect vulnerable individuals, and emphasizing the gravity of the issue and commitment to ethical storytelling through visible emotional reactions during the narration. Without a resolution, the documentary may have concentrated on highlighting injustice rather than providing hope or ways for change. The message may have been more critical or aggressive, excluding communities or people unfamiliar with the cultural context.
After discussing the ethical issues and dilemmas faced by the journalists, let's go ahead and discuss the ethical considerations observed. Eyewitness, the program that aired the documentary, is known for uncovering the raw and often overlooked realities of Filipino lives. In delivering an authentic and honest account of a victim's story, it is crucial to observe ethical measures that protect the dignity, privacy, and emotional safety of those involved. One such measure is safeguarding the identities and security of the victims. To protect the identities and safety of the victims, the team upheld the ethical consideration of anonymity and confidentiality, ensuring to blur out the faces of those involved. Additionally, they used alias names to protect the people who are part of the documentary while keeping the story real and alive. Humaneness was also observed as the journalist and the team addressed the issue with utmost care and sensitivity, with the victims' experiences and trauma while maintaining the full context and background of the issue. To conclude, upholding these ethical standards had tangible and positive effects on the overall delivery and reception of the documentary by creating a safe space where the victims' voices are amplified. Eyewitness consistently delivered stories that were previously unheard, combining sensitivity, genuineness, and responsible storytelling, thereby urging people to build trust in the documentary, knowing that representation of the marginalized and oppressed will always be their primary objective.
The first ethical consideration not observed in the documentary is the rule of law. One painful truth shown in the documentary is how the rule of law was ignored in Dolores' case. She was a young woman who went through the terrible experience of being sexually abused, yet instead of being given justice through the court, her pain was pushed aside. Instead of seeking legal action, her case was settled in the tribe through bayad ng kahihiyan or payment for shame and forced marriage to the abuser. However, the Philippine Commission on Human Rights was noted that the rule of law is crucial in ensuring that justice is served. The next ethical consideration that was not observed in the documentary is lack of resources. In the case of Jasmine and Marisol, who were abused by their uncle, they have a lack of knowledge and resources to report their experience and had to rely on their mother and social workers for help. This shows how the absence of support like access information, legal aid, and safe spaces can make victims feel powerless. Although the Philippine human rights framework ensures the right to be heard, their fear and lack of awareness prevented them from speaking out, which evidently shows how important it is to have the ability to exercise one's right.
Additionally, a major concern shown in the documentary is how victims are denied their basic rights and freedoms. The denial of such right and freedom makes it difficult for justice to be served, as this becomes harder to attain without these rights. Without meaningful participation, victims are silenced and excluded from decisions that directly affect their lives, hindering their full ability to exercise their human rights. In the absence of these rights, victims are left defenseless and with no active action or support. The eyewitness documentary effectively presented the issue with considerable depth, revealing its multifaceted nature through a range of critical perspectives. However, while the documentary thoroughly illustrated the consequences experienced by affected communities, it did not sufficiently explore the structural roots of the problem. Specifically, the lack of access to education, legal resources, and local government support in smaller and marginalized communities. If the documentary had accounted for these dimensions, it would have illustrated a stronger and scholarly based analysis of the unjust implications on which institutional reforms and educational interventions would be the ways of achieving sustainable social justice and community empowerment.
In conclusion, Kapalit ng Katahimikan is more than just a story about sorrow and silence. It is an invitation to listen, ponder, and act. It was ethically delivered as it encourages us to think about how to pursue justice in culturally sensitive ways, as well as how journalism can be a force for both truth and healing.